Oh, you are in your backyard.
I am in my backyard. A nice
Okay.
day, might as well do it.
All right, let's do it. Our guest today is Jenny Burke, real estate investor, new mom, actually not so new since your baby just turned one, and also a real estate agent on my team at Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Hi, Jenny. And she's also my best friend and lives around the corner from me. So it's a good episode to get recorded. How long have you been flipping homes? And then we'll get into your background.
I have been flipping homes. The first home that I flipped was about 6 years ago. That was in Georgia. But well, actually, before that, I flipped a condo. We'll get into it. That was
Okay.
about 7 years ago. But I have been full-time flipping homes for about 4 years. Before that, I flipped two houses while I had a corporate job, while I had my real estate license, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it, that I could sustain, more a corporate salary or more while still flipping houses. So yeah, so that's how long I've been doing it. Long-winded answer.
No, it's good. But I mean, so originally you obviously worked other jobs like a lot of us. What was the impetus to get into real estate? I know your first purchase was that condo. But when did you get to the point where you were like, real estate's going to be the thing for me in terms of investing? I know you got licensed before you were investing.
Right, right. And in terms of getting licensed, I feel like I always kind of like you. I mean, you grew up actually in the industry, but I just always grew up with an interest. So as soon as I graduated college is when and I think a lot of people thinking about getting licensed and just getting licensed will relate to this. Right out of college, I started to take my real estate classes, and then I realized I have a corporate job. I'm not ready to go into this full time. I would have to give I feel like I would have to give all of my efforts into real estate to do it full time. So I took the classes, never took the test. So then 4 years later, I took the classes again. And then I kind of really, I did it. I got my license. I started practicing, and then I still thought, wait, I'm still not ready for this to be my full-time gig. Went back to corporate. So I feel like a lot of people who might be struggling with real estate or thinking about it have gone through this. So finally, when I decided to flip full-time, is when I decided this is going to be my career, flipping in real estate, and being an agent.
Yeah.
So
When you
sorry, go
got
ahead.
when you got your license though, were you already thinking about investing? Because I remember when you got your license, but it wasn't like just for investing. It was like to try to be an agent and then see what happened. What changed in order to make it, flipping and real estate on the money making side, the thing?
Well, so when being in the Atlanta suburb culture, there was they were just recovering when I was living in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta. They were just recovering from that like huge recession where houses in Atlanta were going for like $30,000. And it wasn't like that when I was there, but there were still houses you could buy in at like 120,000 and sell in the threes. So that kind of being part of that culture in Atlanta and realizing, and I've always had an interest in the construction side of it. But it is really hard if you don't grow up in that, like, how do you start? Even somebody who like wants to be in construction, it's kind of like a really hard, you can go to school to learn about any professional degree, or you could go to trade school to be a plumber, but how do you get into construction? And so I think that's a hard step for people to take. And it certainly was for me. And it's
Yeah,
hard to get
do
contacts.
I mean, I know we've talked about this before, but do you think it's harder to step into the investor field, especially when it comes to construction, as a female? I mean, it's just
Oh, for sure.
slanted, male dominated industry.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing is, I feel like I know a lot now, and I'm pretty seasoned and I have a lot of experience, and I'm still really badly experiencing the issues of being a woman and not getting kind of the same respect, which like I said on other podcasts, like I'm definitely not a feminist, like, or now I feel like in this day and age I am,
Yes.
but I never was.
I know what you mean.
It just was what it was. And yeah, like it's kind of a bummer to see that this is just like always going to be what it is. And no matter how much you know, you're just not going to get the same respect if you're not part of the boys club.
Yeah. Don't you feel, I mean, like I know in our experience, so one thing I didn't mention at the beginning is Jenny's also the project manager for Streamlined Properties. She manages her own projects as well as several other projects for other outside contractors and clients. We learned early on by having her as a project manager of what it looks like when people come. And you also look young, so they think you're like a baby and also a female and don't know anything. But I remember us discussing, especially on the 26 Central, the stuff that happened on that. What's that like, you know, and do you feel like every time you have to prove yourself again that you know stuff? Or I always find myself having to like over explain how much you know when I shouldn't have to do that, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny because I will say, for as long as someone isn't like a total boys club misogynist, I feel like I can start talking their language pretty quickly and get
Yeah.
over that hump really quickly. But like, I think especially dealing with the town inspectors. So sometimes it works in my favor because sometimes an inspector comes, especially for COs, and they just assume that I'm the homeowner. And they're like, "Oh, did you like living here? Oh, where are you going?" And I'll play that all day. I don't
Yeah. Yeah.
like whatever, I'll take the win when I can get it. But in terms of like a building inspector, I mean, they kind of just roll their eyes at me. And unfortunately, sometimes as part of those hard conversations, like I would like to say, oh, I can hold my own. And I certainly can in some situations. But some of those like really tough, power hungry building inspectors, I just ask the contractor to be there because I know that it's an uphill battle and it's so much hinges on the building inspector's approval that if I've got to have someone there that they think looks like they know what they're talking about, I'd rather just have them there. So
I mean, that's part of the problem. It looks like they know what they're talking about is just what you're up against because you know more than almost everybody, including a fair amount of the contractors that are in there, but they're coming in with this point of view where I would find for you, I mean, I know, because we talk about it, but I feel like it's stressful because you have to work extra hard just to prove to somebody that you know what you're doing all the time.
Right. Yeah. And I've definitely, I started this business and you and I have always talked about this and kind of always not clashed about it, but you're like that. You always say that I'm too nice. And so I'm like, I like being nice. I like killing people with kindness. Sometimes that's the best way to get things done. And you know what? In the last 2 years, with the way that market is and the way that people, everybody thinks so many people are doing work that I'm competing with retail buyers, with someone redoing their kitchen who's lived in their house for 20 years. So I'm competing with them right now in terms of contractors' time and energy. And they know that they could probably get more from a retail buyer. And unfortunately, these contractors often don't realize that when the market takes a hit and nobody's doing that stuff, we're still going to be there. And so they can't see beyond that. And so that's been really frustrating. And I know we're like jumping ahead. That's definitely been frustrating. And definitely giving me more of an attitude like yours, which is you've got to be a little tough and mean. And so I'm getting
thanks. Yeah, thanks.
All right, you and my husband, I've been convinced to be more of like
be meaner. Yeah. I mean, I think, part of the business requires it, especially, if we have a chance, we'll talk about, what happened on Malvern and our bet that I won. Thank you very much. But we've done so many projects together, and even the ones that you do on your own or I do on my own, we're obviously always walking in and out of them. What do you think the biggest flipping lesson you learned early on? I think it was probably after Orange Heights, which was your first like real New Jersey flip. What's been the biggest lesson going on through? How many have you done now total for flips? And then we'll get to that biggest lesson. It's like more than 10.
Counting yours, I would say it's like 14, 12.
Yeah. 14. And that's just in a few years. What do you think your biggest lesson as a flipper is so far, including what type of market we're in now?
Yeah. So I think what I learned right away and what we always talk about, which is flippers make this error a lot, is if there is an inherent problem with the property, like, let me give some examples. There is a truck depot across the street. There is no backyard. The backyard is a cliff.
Busy road.
Yeah. Yeah, but in this market, busy road's okay.
True.
Like I feel like busy road, if it's a horribly busy road and it's like 2 stoplights, then
Right,
yes.
right.
But like a super skinny driveway that you can't fit a car in, stuff like that, that is, I mean, that's not within our margins to fix stuff like that. And some of it you just can't fix. If it has an inherent problem that you see, you can't overcome it. Buyers are going to see it. I wouldn't, no price, no low price could get me to buy something with that type of inherent issue. Oh, really bad water problems. Like those are so difficult to fix, and you could pour money into them and maybe try to fix it. But you, like, I had a house, and we don't have to get in, we can get into it a little. A house that I knew the house sloped to the house, the
You're
yard
talking
sloped
about Barry?
what?
Talking
Barry,
about
yeah.
Barry?
And no matter what we did, we tried to fix the water problem. They knew about the water problem. The buyers then knew about the water problem. We gave them a credit for it. And I, of course, become friends with, whenever I get a flip, I become friends with all the neighbors. And so I became friends with the neighbor across the street, and she said they had backhoes there. They dump money into it. Water will find a way, and it's really difficult to fix a water problem.
Yeah, those are all good points. I mean, I think as investors, we see it all the time. We see the property and you wonder why the flip's not selling. And then you look across the street and there's a bus depot, like you said, or
like
it's
really bad high tension wires.
Right.
Like,
Right. You have to account for that going in, and maybe there is a price appropriate, but I feel like new flippers are so hungry to just get a deal. They're like, why has this been on the market, 180 days? The reason is because all of us seasoned investors passed on the deal. So when you go get that deal, you are buying into inherent issues, including structural problems, which is how we got, Central and Malvern.
yeah, I feel like structural problems for the right price, it's fixable. It's just what I feel like what we learned from the structural problem thing is you have to budget extra for it, and you have to budget the extra time, because sure, building a foundation should only take a week, but getting the architect and then the structural engineer and the people who are willing to do the foundation and waiting for the weather to be good. Like, I used to say absolutely no structural problems, but now I feel like for the right price, I would do structural problems.
Oh, and
Don't you think?
well, yeah, I did 2 in a row. I think we did at least really well on the second one. But I mean, I think structural is okay as long as you understand. I think for a new investor, structural, you're going to get taken for a ride. But just like you said, I think the most
a new investor, don't do it.
No
unless
chance.
like you yourself are a structural engineer. Or
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's the time and money thing. You need to have extra money and extra time. It's why we see half done flips on the market, because they just don't account for what things cost. And that's just a matter of experience. But don't you think, I mean, we'll just kind of be going all over the place. But I mean, I think that right now is the worst time. This is July of 2022. This is the worst time to be a first time flipper in recent history, because the prices are so high to acquire crappy properties that your spread's going to end up being nothing. You agree or disagree?
Totally agree. First time flippers do not buy anything right now, unless you acquire some super cheap property from like a dead family member.
Right.
Or
without issues. Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right. With cosmetic issues, then go ahead, flip. The market is still decent. But the price, we're in such a weird time that I would say like a month ago, 2 months ago, just don't even try. Every piece of crap is getting multiple bids, going way too high. I mean, for a while I was bidding on properties and I was getting outbid so badly that for houses that were like covered in mold, people couldn't even live there. And my margin, if I paid that much, would have been like negative. So it was just not a good business decision. And it's kind of a bummer because I really want to be flipping all the time. I really like it. But if it's not a good business decision, it's just not. Now what we're seeing, Jonathan and I were just talking about, is some of these houses, they're really nice. Even flips, we're actually, I'm barely even seeing any flips hitting the market because nobody can flip because the prices are too high.
Yeah.
But the nice lived in houses that people have done the renovations, those are still going really high in this area. But the houses that either have an inherent problem or do need the work aren't flying off the market like they were. So we're starting to dip our toes in to look at those properties and see if we can get a deal as people get more nervous about the market. But I'm still very nervous because I don't know what happens. Say it takes 3 months to flip a house, between closing and flipping, 4 months to flip a house, 3.5. What does the market look like in 3.5, 4 months? Is
Yeah.
our prices, our interest rates going to drive prices so low that the margin's gone? So
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
still really worrisome.
I think when you look at the dumpy houses that are sitting on the market, that's a product of interest rates. The new HGTV buyer who looks at those homes and thinks they can flip them, and who can overbid on what we would because they're going to live there. They're not going to buy in on a junk house right now at 6% interest rate over 30 years because it's just the costs are going to be too high. They don't have the renovation money in there. So that does separate us. Do you think it's easier? So both you and I are generally cash investors or asset-based security investors. Do you think that has given you advantage? I know when we're making offers for you, we're obviously using that as leverage. Cash investors have an advantage, although it's not the end all. But does that help you when you're evaluating deals to know that you can buy this with cash and your margins?
Yeah, for sure. So there are two sides to that. So of course, without any type of loan, I am not as worried about my monthly costs. I'm just worried about my construction costs. It's definitely
Right.
easier to budget. All I have to budget is my insurance and my taxes and utilities, but that's negligible. So for sure that's easier. I feel awful for investors who are getting hard money and something happens like a structural issue or a hold up with a contractor or a hold up with the building department, and every day that ticks by you're paying 9%, 11%. That's really scary to me, and why I generally don't do it. I think for a really good property I would, but I think I was going to say I'm not desperate enough, but I think nobody should be desperate enough to put
Yeah.
themselves in a position where they're not going to make money.
Yeah, I mean, why be desperate enough to put yourself behind on so much at 12? Like now would be 12 to 15% interest rates when you're buying in high and construction costs are at an all-time high. Lumber's a little down, but contracting costs are high and delayed. Don't you think that for new flippers, I would be telling everybody what we always say, you're probably going to spend twice as much and it's going to take twice as long as you think right now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's like an absolute 100%. I mean, we've had deals in the last couple of years that took almost 2 years or took a year when we were supposed to be done at 6 months for a variety of reasons. Towns are not always friendly. What's been the biggest thing that you learned about working with the towns on getting certificates of occupancy? Because you're really good at building the relationships with people, but this is so important in flipping and investing, not just building relationships with people on the block so they don't harass your project, but knowing the inspectors and knowing what to deliver to them. What do you think your biggest lessons have been learned in dealing with towns? Because I think that's one thing that investors discount and then they bump up against it and it's not going to get closed the way they think if the town doesn't like what they're doing or they do things without permits.
Yep. I've learned this for myself and I've learned this from other subcontractors. If you fight with them, they're always right. They might be on a power trip. They might be wrong. Like, that. Okay. So first of all, just know they're on a power trip, but accept it and just be like submissive. I would say, just be nice to them, make small talk. And if they want
This
you to
sounds
change,
so terrible. This is exactly why I have you as my project
Yeah.
manager. I need a
I know. Yeah.
buffer. This is the worst.
I
Ugh.
know. And just if they ask you to change something. So I used to when I was first flipping, I lost sleep. I just didn't sleep for a year. I lost sleep over everything, especially these inspections. And guess what? Like, you're going to fail in inspections. Like, they're on a power trip. They want weird, random things that you didn't know they wanted. Maybe your contractor made a mistake, and it's okay. It's no big deal. If you fail something, just redo it.
Fix it.
Hopefully it's nothing big, but I feel like usually you fail for something small, like insulation not in the right place, something not strong. It's not that. You just accept that you're going to fail. Be nice to them. Don't argue over anything. And I feel like you can tell if somebody doesn't want to make small talk and then just get them in and out and make the changes. Some towns, I mean, one town in particular, I feel like everyone feels like they just can never win with them. And I'm sure there are a lot of towns that people experience that issue. So if you're never going to win with the town, just do the best you can. If you fail, fix it. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like so many subcontractors, I feel like a lot of electricians and plumbers want to argue because they say they know the code and this guy doesn't know the code. And I'm going to call the DCA, which is like the governing body. It's not going to get you anywhere.
No,
Just
you're not going to get your
change it.
permit closed. It doesn't. Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, I think, ego always plays a big role in flipping. I think any of us, me included, who've gotten like, either emotionally attached to a property or, thought that we knew everything about this and we knew the prices. You always find out you're wrong in investing, and you're constantly adjusting. Each project that we do together, we're always trying to figure out, what's the right price, what's the good time frame to get through it. But dealing with the town is the one thing that'll hold you up at the end, literally more than anything else, because you're just not going to get your CO if they don't want you to. So I agree. You have to do exactly what they say, even if you don't like it, because you want to get the property closed.
Something you said made me think about the pricing conversation. And I feel like we always go through this. We're in a market where people are underpricing or slightly underpricing and getting, depending on the market, right? Montclair, they're underpricing by $300,000. Morris County, New Jersey, where we live, where things are going $30,000 to $50,000 over, sometimes 100. So I feel like when you do a flip, and we see builders do this really badly, is overpriced, because you're looking at the product. It's great. You know what it's worth. You've looked at the comps. And I feel like whenever we look at our finished product, like we think a number, right? So for example, Malvern, right? For example, we went into Malvern with the idea that it would go for 800. And as it moved along, we were like, this is really nice. The market's really hot. Maybe we should go for a little more. And this happens with like every project, like even ones that I was like, oh, I should price at $399. And we're like, oh, the market's hot. Maybe I should go for $415. And then somebody comes in and they're like, oh, you should get, this is definitely worth $425. And you're afraid that if you price low, I feel this is like a lesson. I feel like we're learning. If you price, we're like, we don't want to price low because people don't love to bid high on flips. So let's price at what it's worth. But then people feel like you're overpriced. So I feel like
or they do what we think they did on Malvern, is they see the price and assume they have to bid 75,000 more, and then they don't bid, and we're all like, uh-oh. I mean, there's so many dynamics to pricing in the market all the time that, I think for us, obviously we're both licensed, but I think if you're not licensed and you don't have a good real estate agent helping you and you're a flipper, you're always going to list too high, or you're going to list with like a 1% list. That's not going to help you. I mean, we're professional in turning out yours. Obviously we built our agreement because you don't like listing as much as I do. So you do the flip, I do the listing, and then we handle it like always. But yeah, don't you think, I think a lot of the flips that we see fail on the market are bad agents or bad marketing, bad representation, and also bad construction, bad flip. It kind of all goes together.
Bad construction. I mean, we've definitely seen some bad construction and bad taste.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure I have clients that I'm showing a lot of new construction to. That was their original preference. And I'm looking at these and I'm like, are you serious? Like, what people, they're kind of like two styles people like these days. There's like that more mid-century modern, but modern clean lines. And then there's farmhouse. So why is somebody putting mini mosaic glass tiles anywhere? It shouldn't be anywhere. You shouldn't put that in. I mean, if you want to put that in your own house, do whatever you want, but like, just put in the 4x10 subway tiles in white.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good point though, because I think the way that both you and I flip, we make sure we have personality. We both like shiplap. We're definitely going to make it, not necessarily for everybody, but also not just for like one person. Right. I think those people, like we see like, oh, they got a deal on this marble, and then you see it like all over. Like, why do you have the same tile in 4 bathrooms? It looks terrible. It's just not thinking as what the person wants. It's thinking on deals, I think, on the way in. And I think we've seen a lot of new flippers do that, or they get a formula and then they all look the same and then it's boring.
Right. Yeah, right. That like builder grade look. Like if I see gray shaker cabinets in a new construction, like don't want them to see it. I mean, this out now I sound like I'm being bratty, but if you're gonna flip, be in tune with what people want in the market. Be in tune with get to know your market, get to know what people are looking at. All you have to do is look at solds and what they sold for and what the style is. It's
I think
you don't
that
have to do it expensively. Yeah.
a flip is definitely like not about us as flippers, and ego gets away from people trying to make it look the way that they want. But I mean, to me, like a flip, because we both love houses in general, is about reconfiguring the house to make it more suitable to the modern buyer. And that's what we do by removing walls, adjusting where lights are, changing the way the room dynamic is. You've changed where the kitchen is and swapped the kitchen and dining room a couple of times. Why do you make that decision, and how does that play into what modern buyers are looking for?
Yep. So we live in an area where these typical 1905 to 1925 houses they're a side hall colonial, a lot of them are side hall colonials, kind of craftsman style. I mean, if you look at pictures, we've put pictures of a bunch of my flips side by side, and they all look identical. But guess what? Different buyers were in the market that year. I don't care if they look identical.
They do not look identical.
Yeah. Right. Not identical. I've changed a little, but the layouts are very similar, and my staging furniture is the same. So they start to kind of
That's true.
But so a lot of these, if you're in this area, you know the kind of house I'm talking about, but this isn't always the case. But actually this works for a lot of houses. So these houses are side hall colonials, which have the stairs on the side and then a little galley kitchen behind the stairs, huge living room in the front, huge dining room to the left. And typically the middle wall between the kitchen and the dining room, where you'd think, oh, I'll just open it up. It's usually a very load bearing wall. It's like the load bearing wall of the house. And there's usually a chimney stack in it. So even if you were to put a beam, support it, and open up that kitchen, there's a big chimney in the way. And the cost even if you wanted to demo the chimney and direct vent the furnace, that's really expensive. Let's call that $10,000 of money you don't have to spend. So these and a lot of these houses, nobody bought them because the kitchen is so super tiny.
Right.
And I feel like especially millennial buyers, especially during COVID, the top 10 things people want, a giant dining room is not part of it. It's kind of like nobody really needs 10 seats anymore. People do, but in the price range I'm looking at, which is first time home buyers, nobody's like, I need a 10 person dining room, because they know that's just not something they can get.
But they need a nice kitchen.
Right. But they want a nice kitchen. They want an open kitchen. So usually the front living room and the dining room are super open to each other, and the wall between them is not a load bearing wall. So I've been moving kitchens because you create an open floor plan without needing an architect. So taking down that little, that 6 foot, it's like a 6 foot doorway, but it could go all the way side to side because that wall is not important, is way cheaper. And it feels like an open floor plan. And usually the dining room is wide enough to fit an island or some kind of peninsula. So it's been working really well. If anyone wants to see pictures of it, we have plenty of pictures of situations we've done that, and it creates an open floor plan, and then you can turn the other room into a smaller dining room. The last house I did that in, the dining room was really small, but we got creative and kind of pushed. If anyone wants to see it, you might have to get creative with your dining room.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I mean, I don't think that, a dining room is something that feels nice to have a formal dining room, but it's not super functional. Like nobody eats all their meals at the dining room table for the most part, if it's a formal dining room. So adjusting to make houses more livable for modern buyers, which includes making sure that there's home office spaces, after the pandemic, where people are going to be working, finding nooks where other things can go, and adjusting for how people actually live their life is what I think you've been smartly doing over the time to see what's going to make more sense to the buyers. And that's why we're able to sell quicker, I guess, than some that are sitting. We never really sit on the market because we're kind of paying attention to what's what's out there. But I mean, I think, you know, in addition to moving a wall, one of the things that we're always looking to do if there's not a bathroom is where we're going to put that powder room on the first floor. There's no,
Or full bath.
yeah, I mean, you cannot flip a house right now and then leave it without a first floor half bath or full bath. It's just illogical. But the cost is there. So identifying, you know, is there a half bath, like you said, that we can turn into a full bath, which is great to have an extra shower, at least on the first floor, or where are we going to do it so it's not directly in the kitchen? And if it has to be, great. Or we can do what we did in Malvern, which is we close the door to the kitchen and open it into another area, which is going to be better long term. Are there any other things when you walk into a house, moving walls, finding the bathrooms, that you think are like really the most important in terms of what you turn out in your final product to the end buyer?
Flooring is important to people, I'm learning. So if there's carpet under, this doesn't really affect your budget, but this just affects your planning. A lot of times we've thought, oh, there's got to be hardwood floors under this carpet, and there's not.
Yeah.
But little known fact, the cost of sanding and staining original hardwood floors is about the same as the cost of putting new engineered hardwood floors in. So either way is fine. Just know which direction you're going to go.
Yeah. And if
But
you have room to even do you know, some floors are on their last level. So if they need to be sanded, you're just going to sand them out. And these are things, again, that new flippers don't know. And you can get bad advice from contractor and subcontractors, which we potentially will get into as well. But I mean, just to drop back, our markets have been, we both live in New Jersey. We both live in Mendham, New Jersey, which is in Morris County, but we've done primarily a lot of our flips in Essex County. What do you think the difference is as this market changes? Like, what are you looking for now that you said before, like we're both kind of dipping our feet back into looking for properties, but with the prices higher, what are we looking for to enhance our margins on deals now?
yeah, I think we're changing. It has to do with where we move to, but I think we're changing to an area where the price differential between a house that is unrenovated and renovated is really, really high in this market. I think everywhere, but particularly in the county that we're living in. So it's interesting because we were looking at these like teeny tiny old houses. I mean, obviously we're going to have to spend more to do this, but these teeny tiny houses where the margin's a little bit tight. The difference between a house that is renovated and not renovated isn't huge, but these slightly larger houses in slightly more upscale towns, where like Montclair, here's an example. Montclair, it doesn't matter if it's a crappy house or a good house, it's going to sell. But some of these other towns, if you look in like, you know, adjoining areas, people only want the done houses. So a house that's really more of a lipstick house, I think the margins just look a lot better. And that was really not the case when I started flipping 5 years ago. So I think the market has just changed. And I think it also has to do with more millennial and Gen Z buyers entering the market, and they have super busy lives. First of all, they don't have the savings to do $100,000 renovation. They can't afford it. And they're like, oh, I don't have time. My lease is up in September. And so I'm looking at a house in July. So I got to get in. So the benefit of turnkey, I think, is more than ever with this new generation of like instant gratification buyers looking into the market.
Yeah, but I think one thing that separates you and I and other real estate agents who also invest, like we're both able to give clients, at least the two of us and others we know, can make it more comfortable for market buyers to buy something that needs renovation, because we can assist them with getting all of the right things in place to then also know that their out value on that property or their ARV after repair value is going to be good, that they have a higher appraisable value. So I mean, I know you have, but have you seen it as a huge advantage to be licensed and also working with what start off as traditional market buyers looking at like new builds or brand new homes, and then you can say like, hey, there's this house down the street that needs only 120 of work, and your out value, you're going to already be up 100 grand. You think that gives us an advantage to the modern buyer who does watch a lot of HGTV, but doesn't really know how to implement those things?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that makes a huge difference. I've had tons of people who we're looking for turnkey, and then realize as we look through these houses, especially, I think, especially buyers that are layout driven, that really want a particular layout, and like who have good taste, they should do a if they have the time and they have the money, they should do a renovation, because like we said, most of these flippers and these builders aren't giving people the product that they really want, but people are taking them because they're turnkey. I love, that's like my favorite buyer, is a buyer who wants to do work. Most of my buyers are that now. I may have some people have been referred to me because they want to do work, and I can help them with that and tell them like, here's some ideas. And those are my favorite buyers who like really want to do the full reno.
Yeah.
But I think that I probably have turned some buyers into people who are comfortable doing work, because if you just want to do some lipstick stuff, say you just want to sand the floors and change the kitchen layout and do a couple bathrooms, that's easy. Not, it's not easy. Like that's $100,000, or $80,000, but then you get what you want, as long as that's what anybody should do if they can afford to do it. Because look at what's on that. Look at all. I'm glad I had these super new construction buyers lately, because I got to see what true new construction has to
Yeah.
offer. And the lots aren't very good. The lots are small. The houses are too big for the lots.
Yeah,
And
because builders need to get like a deal. So they're often buying these oblong lots, or getting a lot that had 2 homes, turning it into 3 for a mini subdivision. And, their builder choices are going to be very standard. There's some really nice ones, obviously, in the high end, when you're up in over $1 million, $2 million. Those are super sweet, but like under $1 million, your new builds are going to be pretty standard. And I think, again, what Jenny's saying and what we look to try to do is we're trying to help your regular buyers who are interested in getting the layouts and stuff that they want, but show them like, this house, you can do it. You move this wall and you do this. And, that's hard. Not a lot of agents know about investing, and not a lot of agents or licensed people really know about renovation and the cost. So I think it helps on both ends, but that makes for like a full real estate career for you, right? You can do the agent business, still help people with project management, also flip, and then you put all those things together. And then hopefully they're worth it each year.
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable how few agents have educated themselves about construction, with so many houses that need work. Like I was at this broker open, like, I don't know, a year ago. And the agent was like, yeah, there's no bathroom on this floor, but like, I think you can put one over here. And I looked in the basement, and I came upstairs, and I was like, you cannot put like, you definitely can't put a bathroom there. Like,
there was no foundation, right? Or there was something else.
Yeah, it was like on a slab.
Yeah.
It was like, I've actually done this. It's not good though. So, oh no, what it was is there was an addition, and there was like foundation between that space and the other space. So you'd have to like drill through foundation, which of course you could do, but
not cost effective though.
Correct way to do it.
Yeah.
So I was like, if people ask, like, you should put the bathroom here. And she like wasn't like, oh,
thanks.
She didn't think it was helpful. She was like, whatever. It's like, okay, you don't care because you're just selling this house and it's not your problem. But then the buyers are going to buy the house, like the house across the street from us, which the buyers bought a house. Nobody told them that the house was in a historical zone and the footprint couldn't be changed. And then all of a sudden they go to change the footprint, and the town's like, absolutely not. You're in a historical zone. So I feel like as an agent, I mean, if you're like an agent watching this, of course it's more helpful to get this experience through the actual experience in doing it, but just like educating yourself on those kinds of codes and what can be done. Even if it's, I guess watching HGTV doesn't really teach you those things. I don't know how to learn them other
some
than
does. No, I mean, I think you have to learn it all with experience. But I mean, if you're now at 14 flips and you look back at, Orange Heights, which was the first like real flip, you each time, I mean, both of it, each time I still go into a flip, I'm going to learn something new or figure out some new way. And then the market changes and we have to adjust. But going back to some more, I guess, this podcast, which is still news and in the art of real estate investing, is about the mindful approach to real estate. You're kind of a nervous Nelly on the flips. So what things have you put into place that make it easier for you, which it's still difficult, I know, because you kind of worry about everything, even when we get to we could talk about what happens the second that we list, but what do you think you've changed from flip 1 to flip 14 that has helped you just like not freak out the whole time as much as in the beginning?
Yeah. Like we said earlier on the call, my first probably 2 flips, no, 3 flips, I just, in certain parts of the project, like sure, when demo starts, it's okay. Certain parts of the project, I just wouldn't sleep. I would just worry and worry and worry. What if this doesn't work out? What if the contractor doesn't show up tomorrow and it's a flaky contractor?
That
That one I
happens.
still is still something that we deal with. Like the managing contractors is one of the most difficult parts of the job.
Yeah.
But I've definitely, like, I'm so much more, first of all, it comes with experience, being more zen about it. If you, as long as you do your due diligence and know what you're in for the project, you, I feel like when stuff goes wrong, I, it's just part of, like you said, I learned something. I failed an inspection. I learned something. I, um, I, something costs more than I thought. Well, hopefully it hits your margin, but hopefully you really should budget with like, at least a 10% deviation in costs, probably even more. So I feel I remember it was probably like my 4th or 5th flip. This happened at Malvern too. Multiple times have I walked into a house during construction and I'm on the first floor indoors and it's raining on me because somebody hit a plumbing pipe.
Yeah.
Something happened.
Well, you didn't tell me until after that happened at
Yeah,
Malvern because I
but
would have lost my
but like
mind.
also who can if you, I knew what that was and I knew what we were doing and it really wasn't a big deal because we were redoing the plumbing and we were redoing the sheetrock was already down. So who cares? It's just raining on nothing. We're sanding the floors and staining them. So I feel like as long as if you know like a decent amount of the ins and outs of actually what's going on during construction, you can be way more relaxed about when things go wrong. Like you were really mad about Malvern, but like,
I get mad about everything.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have gotten so much more zen about it because if you're choosing this career and you know that the margins are high and you know that you're going to make more than I think the other attitude is this is why everybody wants to flip. I can't think of any more lucrative use of your money in a short period of time than flipping. So
If you do it right.
right, if you do it right, of course. Yeah. So if you do it in an educated way and you budget correctly and you're there every day or every other day, preferably every day to make sure the project's going as planned, there's like, if things go wrong, like you're still making more money than if you just had it in some random stock. So I have definitely, I think it comes with experience. So I would say a new investor should not go into it like everything's going to be fine. I shouldn't worry about everything. You should be worried. This is like a lot of money that you're talking about. And if something goes wrong, it can go really wrong and you can lose all your money. So a new investor shouldn't be zen about it. You should be neurotic about it and worried about it because you have to learn. And because, yeah, sure, maybe
Yeah.
you'll lose your money, but you learn something.
I
But
think what you said in the beginning is important. I mean, it's just a lot about knowing your margins. Like we're never really off on the construction costs, and if we are, we've accounted for that extra money. From Malvern or for other projects that we've done together, especially for Belleville for 11 Charles, it was like, am I either going to make X or X plus 20? It doesn't really
right.
matter. Like I know I'm going to do this, which is going to be good. If I can do this times 2, I'm going to be really happy. But then if I have to spend because I really like these countertops more, it doesn't derail my whole project because I know the margins going in. The ARV is usually in these markets going to be going up where we're flipping. So like you said, if we get a couple good comps while we're renovating, we're like, ooh, look, we just gained $50,000, which is what happened in Malvern. We just keep moving up.
And it happened in Belleville too.
Yeah, that was a huge
That
one.
that's you brought up a really good point about, or made me think of a good point, which is your ARV, like what you think you can sell it for, when you go into it, be very conservative, because I
Yeah.
think that's a rookie mistake. Like, oh, if I do this stuff, I'm going to make 900, I can get 900,000.
Yeah, you're
No,
not
you
the
can't.
best home in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You're not. I mean, I think we always put like the most conservative at the time ARV
Yeah.
on it. And
Yes.
that's why when we sell for 50,000 more, that's free money.
Yeah.
But you have to you cannot be a good flipper if you don't know the margins, and you can't know the margins if you don't have MLS access or you don't know how to do it, and you don't have a team of people who I think obviously we could do an entire show, which we may in the future, on contractors, subcontractors, how to get through. Not going to go down that rabbit hole today, but managing that is very important to your bottom line. And so is managing your loan. If you're going to go to 12 months on your loan and your hard money, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So you have to be on top of the construction time frame. But sticking with this Zen concept, which that I love, I'm going to go in the other way. And this goes to what is really not mindful, but let's see what you think. What is wrong with the real estate investing world right now?
Everybody wants to be an investor.
Yep.
Um,
Why is that bad though? I know why I think it is, but why do you think it's bad?
well, I think my husband sent me one of like a meme, or it's like a
Memes usually explain everything.
now, is it a me? I mean, I'm really bad at technology, like a reel or TikTok or one of those things. And it was like all these guys who are like talking about like, I have 144 properties and for total assets of 42 million or whatever. And you realize that they're super, super leveraged, and they're really, so it sounds so great. Oh, this is like the way to build wealth. And all these Instagram, I saw like of 1,000, all these Instagram people that are
You
telling
do sound like an old lady.
Yeah. Be an investor, build wealth, leverage yourself. When the market comes tumbling down, which, I hopefully it doesn't come tumbling down, but when times aren't high, people that really weren't financially or like they weren't equipped to be investors, I think they're going to be in for some trouble. Like, especially the flipping, sure, if you're holding the bag on a flip, that's not great. But all of these people that are like triple house hacking and buying apartment buildings, and they're not ready for what happens if there's like a rental shortage, everybody moves. That there's a lot of people in this, bloggers and stuff say, oh, this Gen Z and the people below Gen Z, they're just going to move back in with their parents when the market crashes. So I think too many people, another problem, and not, this is a flipper problem, is we're seeing these houses that are bidding so high. Okay, here's what I think is wrong with investors.
Part two.
Everybody thinks the good times are going to keep getting better, and the good times are like ending. So people who are buying there was a house on the street in Caldwell on the street. I flipped a house on it, and I did fine on that flip. And so this house a couple blocks down went really high, and we were like, and it needed a total renovation. And we're like, oh, that makes sense. A retail buyer really wants to be in Caldwell. And then we found out that it's a flipper, and it's already somebody paid like $699 for a house that had to be flipped. That's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Caldwell. It's like, the most that house is going to go for is $725. How do you possibly think you're not going to, unless you you're not a builder, you're going to knock that house down and build another one? And it's going to
I mean, what's worse as a flipper than putting your baby on the market and it's sitting there? I know this from experience, from my own blunders. You put it there, you misprice it, or you adjust something the wrong way, and then your perfect product that you really love doesn't sell. That's a tough one. That was a challenge to me for Central when we watched that one stew, because of the construction issues and then errors in pricing. But it really takes a lot to be a good real estate investor, and I think you're right. I mean, everybody wants to be one, which is in theory good, but everybody's not going into it with the education. Where did you learn to be an investor? Because you were never on Bigger Pockets. When I was on Bigger Pockets, you really learned, I think, you would just hawk the contractors. You stayed at your property even when you had a corporate job, and you watched everything that happened and asked them 100,000 questions.
I like sanded floors and pulled staples out of stairs, and listened to everything they said, and hung out with the plumber as they were doing their stuff. Um, and I think also, I'm like obsessed with real estate. Like when I'm somebody who was in a fight with me once, or whatever, my husband was like, you have no hobbies. And I'm like, my hobby is real estate. When the baby goes to bed and I'm sitting on the couch, I'm like on the MLS or on Zillow looking in some like random place that I want to buy a vacation property. Like I love it. So I feel like you see people who are investing or people who are getting the real estate license who are like, oh, I'm just doing it for the money. The people who do it best are people who like love it.
Yeah, I
So
agree. Even if you long term get to a way that becomes a formula and you become a flipper who's flipping 20 houses a year, you're still in it to, I think what you said the other day on one of our calls is a great point, that you explain who your target buyer is and why you know, were flipping in this 360 range, because I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of what you're trying to do. One, we love houses. It makes it easier for us to go look at a bunch of dumps and not feel like, oh, this is a waste of the day. It's always fun. But when you're looking at who you want to provide houses to, when you flip all those in West Orange, who do you think that is? I mean, I know you know what it is, but why does that appeal to you in terms of turning out affordable housing for first-time home buyers, which is what it
yeah.
is?
So yeah, I'm always, my target has always been first time home buyers. First of all, because when I first started, that was all I could afford, was the smaller house, 1,600 square feet, 1,800 square feet. Now in this, where we're looking now, the first time home buyer houses are just a little bit bigger than that, just because we're out more into the sticks, away from the city. And so a couple reasons why I like first time home buyers. First of all, that I like a young first time home buyer, because if you do the cool finishes like the barn doors and the hex matte tile, they definitely appreciate it because they're watching HGTV and they're on Pinterest, and so they appreciate those things. Where now that I'm looking with now, I'm working with higher end buyers. Some of them are first time home buyers, but they're older and they have kids, and they're looking, space is more important to them than finishes sometimes. And I like that making a finishes choice, you could really get somebody to want the house. The other thing, especially in times like this where we're perhaps in for a downturn and rates are going up, that a first time home buyer is always, there's always going to be a first time home buyer. Somebody's always going to be growing up and getting, they just got engaged or
Yeah.
they just had a kid. And so they need a house. So they're like, okay, the rates are going up. Maybe the rates by January will be 10%. They still need a house. And when they decide I'm looking for a house now, the rates just are what they are. And sure, maybe that'll change the prices of these homes, the values of these homes, but they're still gonna look. So a second time home buyer house, for example, maybe Malvern, even though those people could have a 5-bedroom house, usually that's somebody who's upgrading. And if the market is, if rates are really high or values are really low for the house they're selling, they don't have to move. So somebody who's like desperate to get out of the city and needs a home for the first time is always going to look at that size house. The lower, small, on the small side house, while still not having anything wrong with it, like 3 beds, 2 baths. If it's something that has 2 bedrooms, sure, in this market it has been selling, but I still wouldn't buy a house that has 2 bedrooms because just too few of people want it.
I like 2 bedrooms as rentals. I mean, I think they rent like 3 bedrooms, similar price if they have the space and people need them, and those are great options. So if a brand new investor came to you now and said, what's your best piece of advice? I want to get started. Don't consider the market, but like, what would be the number one piece of advice that you would give someone who, I guess, wants to be a flipper and then in general wants to become a real estate investor?
My first piece of advice would be look at tons and tons of houses,
Thank you.
because is that the right answer?
Yeah, I mean, we always complain about it because I think if looking online, people are like, oh, I ran the numbers on 50 houses. And the first question I always ask is, well, how many have you seen? They're like, well, I mean, I didn't go to see any. What do I need to see a house? Okay. That's
Yeah,
exactly why you're going to lose all of your money.
you like cannot see that it's across the street from like an actual garbage dump, like
Yeah,
a
but
giant mountain of garbage.
don't you think that like walking houses and not just using your eyes, but smell and your sound, what you hear creaking in the floorboards, what it smells like, and then knowing what 300,000 looks like, in West Orange compared to what 300,000 looks like in Mendham, which is nothing. I think if you don't know that, you're just playing video games. How do you even know the answers? And you're going to get yourself into doing properties based on numbers that are all false.
Yep. Yep.
What
Yeah.
about for the person who says, I want to be a real estate investor long term? What's the best way to get started?
If you don't have, I would say if you don't have the money or like the assets or anything to get started, then get your license. Like,
You can be
then you
around
can go
real
look
estate
at,
all the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just and like and this, it sounds like I'm plugging like you in these calls, but like go on these calls or like read a book. I think these calls are more helpful
I
because
think what you're referring to is Zen in the Art of Real Estate and our investing, our masterminds sessions, which are twice a month. One the first Wednesday of each month, which is now a tri-state meetup on Zoom, and then the third, which we're switching to formal kind of like one-offs on flipping Airbnbs. But we've done them for more than 2 years in New Jersey, Philadelphia, Florida, Boston. The meetups are where it at, right? How can you be an investor if you don't know other investors? We've both learned so much from just meeting other investors, right, over the years.
yeah, yep, yeah, right. I love those calls because I love to hear people. The best ones are kind of the ones that are bitch fests where people are complaining about their tenants, complaining about issues with their contractors and working through them, because then you really get to, I feel like if you go on Bigger Pockets, like you always said, sometimes on Bigger Pockets, it's like an amazing resource, but people are looking for people to yes them to death. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
of
this is a
course.
good idea.
Yeah.
Where you really need, and sure, reading a book, you can learn about some of it, but hearing from like an actual group, it does sound like I'm plugging it, but it's true.
But any
Hearing from
groups
an actual-
anywhere,
right, of
you
course.
need to be in meetups, real estate investing meetups, no matter where you live. You can look on Bigger Pockets, you can look on meetup.com and go to the ones where there's not, lenders. I don't
Yeah.
want anyone selling me anything. I just want to meet and talk to other real estate investors and learn stuff. I want to know where they're investing, what hiccups they had with X town. You can save yourself a whole bunch of money just by having friends. Like if someone wants to invest in West Orange and they don't come to you, they're stupid because
Yeah.
you've done 6 flips in West Orange. Why wouldn't you know the answers to what they're doing?
Right.
And if you want somebody who, if you want to buy a fourplex, talk to somebody who owns a fourplex.
Right.
These things are completely invaluable. So moving forward, like, I mean, I know you want to get back into flipping, but like, what's your dream project as we close this up? Oh, wait, it's going to be the Cape May Airbnb, right?
Yep.
Damn
My
it.
dream project. Is that a boring dream project?
No, you're just trying to drag me into it, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, I've already owned a beach. I've owned a beach like, a block from the beach property, I bought new construction and sold, and then I flipped one on an inlet near the beach. So I thought I was done with beach houses, but I love Cape May so much. That's my dream project because, from a design perspective, I have like a vision of what I would want. And the truth is the rental values in Cape May are so insanely high. I wouldn't be looking at it as a moneymaker. I would just want to own the property and I would just want the rental. I would want to rent it like every week, except maybe 3 weeks out of the year where I could use it myself. But it's just, I love historic houses. And I love like, I'm sure anyone who loves homes and these types of projects, like, to be somewhere where there's a certain aesthetic and kind of like use your own vision in this, like New Orleans has it, like somewhere that has this really cool vibe, and to put your own spin on it would just be like the coolest project to me, but it's super, super expensive. So that's my, for
Maybe,
now, that's my why of why
yeah.
I hustle and work hard. So
maybe it will get less expensive as we go. If anybody wants to reach out to you directly, would you rather them do that via email, right?
Email's good. They can also text me.
Okay, you sure you want to do this? One day
Yeah.
this podcast is going to be big. Text only. Give them your number.
You want my number?
Well, it's text only. They're going to call. That's why I'm saying. I'll just give them
Only
your
text me. If
email.
you call me, I won't answer. If you email me, I might not see it.
See,
so for now,
you've learned this from me.
You can cut this off once this is big and I'm getting 1,000 texts. 908-370-7370.
Text only, don't call. I don't
won't.
answer my phone. I'm trying to train Jenny to never answer her phone, even though sometimes you look at your phone and like, oh, I want to answer this one. I'm like, why?
If it's
You
a
don't know
Zillow call,
what the
I will.
number is. Well, yeah, of course. That's the case. All right. Thanks so much. As always, you will see Jenny a lot on this podcast. She's going to come back to guest host and do some other things with us and on our meetups. Any last things you want to tell a seasoned investor out there who maybe hasn't done 14 projects, but has done enough to know? What do you think they need to know moving forward? Because I think you have, because you're on site all the time, you really know more than just someone who's done 14 projects because you're so involved in the projects.
Yeah, I feel like just knowing the costs of things, the amount of times things take, and yeah, invest flippers or house hackers, just I feel like budget is everything, especially in this market where margins are so tight. So just like know your budget, follow around contractors.
Learn.
And if you do that, like it's gonna be okay. Don't freak out too much.
Yeah, that's it. That's the Zen mindful.
Zen.
Yeah, I've only been
Yep.
telling you that for what, 10 years? All right.
Yeah.
That has been
right.
Jenny Burke, a real estate investor, an agent on my team at Streamlined Properties on market, brokered by eXp Realty, the project manager for Streamlined Properties, and she manages a bunch of other projects as well, and a new mom. My baby BFF is now over 1 year old. So that's usually what we're doing if we're not investing in real estate. Thanks for being a guest. Hold while I give these people the worst part of the show for me, which I have to do. If you like this new podcast, I'm not begging you. If you like it, then please subscribe to it, share it with your friends. It's the thing that makes podcasts go and keep going. And that's the best way we can say that it will move the needle forward for shows like this, which are an honest representation of what's out there for real estate investing without trying to sell you a big mentorship program, which we don't have anything available. Sometime in the future, we may have something, but at now we're just trying to give you the most information ever. So look out for this podcast and more of Jenny in the future. Thanks, and we will see you next episode.
Bye.